Okay, so you want to own a Chick-fil-A franchise. Good news, it's widely considered the best financial deal in American fast food. The franchise fee is just $10,000, the lowest buy-in of any major national chain at a company whose restaurants generate more revenue per location than McDonald's, Popeyes, or almost anyone else in the industry, despite being closed every single Sunday. It sounds like the best-kept secret in franchising. $10,000 to get the keys to a business generating millions in annual sales at a brand with a cult-like following and lines out the door at lunch. It is not what it sounds like. You will never own the restaurant, not the building, not the equipment, not the land it sits on. And when you eventually leave, you cannot sell it because Chick-fil-A never sold it to you in the first place. By the end of this video, you will understand how a $10,000 fee can turn into a six-figure, sometimes seven-figure personal income. And you will understand why, according to the very people who study franchising for a living, what you're actually being offered is not a business at all. Let's start with the number that gets everyone's attention. According to Chick-fil-A's own 2026 franchise disclosure filing, the average freestanding restaurant generates more than $9 million in annual sales. For comparison, the average McDonald's does just under $4 million. The average Popeyes does around $1.7 million. Chick-fil-A isn't just leading the fast food industry in per-location revenue, it's not close. Now here's where most people's math goes wrong. $9 million in sales does not mean $9 million flows to you. A restaurant's revenue and an operator's income are two entirely different numbers, separated by rent, labor, food costs, and one very unusual fee structure that doesn't exist anywhere else in franchising. Every other major chain, McDonald's, Subway, Dunkin', charges a royalty, typically somewhere between 4 and 8% of gross sales, paid to the corporation, while the franchisee keeps the rest as profit and builds equity in a business they can eventually sell. Chick-fil-A does something completely different. The company takes 15% of gross sales off the top immediately before a single expense is paid. Then, after the restaurant's costs are covered, food, labor, rent, utilities, Chick-fil-A takes 50% of whatever net profit remains. You, the operator, keep the other half. Translate that into real numbers. On a restaurant doing $9 million in annual sales, that 15% alone is $1.35 million gone before you've paid a single employee. What's left after operating costs, industry analysts estimate, typically leaves the operator with somewhere between 5 and 7% of total gross sales as personal income. On a top-performing $9 million location, that can translate to $450,000 or more a year. On an average performing location, it might land closer to $150,000 to $200,000. Either way, for a $10,000 entry fee, that income-to-capital ratio has no real equal anywhere else in American franchising. But that's only half the story, because here's the reframe that changes everything about how you should think of this opportunity. You are not buying a business. You are being hired to run one and paid like an owner without ever becoming one. Chick-fil-A corporate funds the land, the construction, the kitchen equipment, the entire build-out, which can run anywhere from $400,000 to over $2 million, depending on the location. That's why the entry fee is only $10,000, instead of the seven-figure investment McDonald's or Dunkin' franchisees have to personally finance. In exchange, Chick-fil-A keeps the asset. You don't own the real estate, you don't own the equipment, you don't hold a lease you could one day sell to someone else. If you decide to retire, or if Chick-fil-A decides not to renew your annual operating agreement, which they review every single year, the restaurant simply reverts back to the company. There is no exit payday. There is no equity to cash out. Your income stops the day you stop showing up. This is the hidden cost that traditional franchise investors, the people used to buying a McDonald's and selling it 15 years later for a profit, consistently misunderstand. A McDonald's franchisee is building a sellable asset. A Chick-fil-A operator is earning a very high salary with profit sharing attached to it. Those are two fundamentally different financial products wearing the same word, franchise. There's a second catch, and it explains why this opportunity, despite the extraordinary income potential, remains one of the hardest to actually get. Chick-fil-A does not allow operators to own other businesses. You cannot run this alongside a second job, a second franchise, or any outside venture. You are required to be physically present in the restaurant, full-time, hands-on every week. Absentee ownership, the entire premise behind most franchise investing, where an investor owns multiple locations and hires managers to run them, is explicitly not allowed. You are not building a portfolio. You are running one restaurant, in person, indefinitely. This full-time, single-unit requirement is precisely why fewer than 1% of applicants are accepted each year. Chick-fil-A isn't primarily screening for capital, since the entry fee is trivial for almost anyone who applies. They're screening for a very specific kind of person willing to trade the traditional upside of business ownership, equity, scale, and eventual sale for extraordinary income and total operational control by the corporation. The application and vetting process alone can take 12 to 24 months, longer than it takes most people to open and staff a McDonald's from scratch. So is it worth it? For someone who wants a demanding, hands-on, extremely well-paid career, running one restaurant at the highest revenue per unit level in American fast food, in exchange for giving up equity, exit value, and the ability to ever scale beyond a single location, the math works extraordinarily well. $400,000 a year on a $10,000 entry fee is a return that doesn't exist anywhere else in franchising. For someone who wants what franchising has traditionally promised, an asset they build, grow, and eventually sell for a life-changing exit, this isn't that business, no matter how good the annual paycheck looks. Chick-fil-A didn't build the most profitable restaurant model in fast food by selling ownership. They built it by keeping it and paying extremely well for someone else to run it for them. Whether that arrangement makes you a business owner or simply the best compensated employee in America is a question this model was designed to make you stop asking somewhere around the first six-figure paycheck.